I think we all want to efficiently move toward better wellness. And if we're going to do that, we need to be using the most powerful healing tools available to us. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm Dr. Peter Minke. This is Minke Wellness. Let's look at what I consider to be the four most powerful healing tools. Now we're going to talk about them categorically, and then we can, get into little details. But I talk about the four essentials for life. Follow me with this. Follow me on this one. If something is essential for life, we have to have it to live, then it's got to be an important healing tool. Now, that doesn't mean that there can't be healing tools that are not essential things for life. In other words, there are things that can help promote more of those essential things. But basically what I'm talking about are these four categories: food, water, air, and love. We would all admit that food is something we can use for healing. And I think that's been true from the beginning of time. And lots of healing systems focus on food as a powerful healing tool. And it is. But it's not the most powerful healing tool, okay? And water, air, and love go up in category from there. And this is how I think about this. If we can survive weeks without food, days without water, minutes without air, and we wouldn't exist at all without love, then if we look at food as a powerful healing tool, how much more powerful is water if we need it, more on an hourly basis, and then how much more even than that for air if we need it on a minute by minute basis, and then love. All of that wouldn't matter if we don't have love. There the examples of babies that wouldn't thrive after World War II in Britain, and they had all the food and the water and the air they needed, but they just didn't have love. They weren't nurtured. So they took them out in the country, held them, nurtured them, and they began to thrive. So we have to have love. In other words, those things don't matter without the love. So what we're talking about here is how do we think about each of these as healing tools, each of these categories. And this is what I'm going to do throughout this year of wellness, is we're going to look at each body system. In this case, we're talking about the respiratory system for the first month, but we're going to talk about each body system, and then how do we look at food, water, air, and love to support that system, protect that system, to nurture that system. And that way we'll go through every body system, and we have these most powerful tools. To me, that's the most efficient way to look at getting well, is to use the most powerful tools. Now, again, if we focus on diet as the only source of wellness, or the only healing tool we have, we're missing out on two of the more powerful tools, water and air, and in the most powerful tool being love. So sometimes in the love category, I admit that it's a little hard to kind of think practically about this, but we're going to throw in all kinds of things about love, and especially at the end of the respiratory system, we're going to talk about that. So now, tomorrow, we're going to talk about a wellness strategy and how to think about a wellness strategy applied to each of these things. But for the moment, let's talk about these four things as they pertain to the respiratory system. Are there foods that we are influenced, or that we can use to help benefit our respiratory system? Is there something in the water category that we can use to benefit our respiratory system? Is there something in the air category, which of course kind of doesn't make sense except for things that we get. So and then something in the love category. Now, tomorrow, like I said, we're going to talk about more details in a wellness strategy, but basically in each one of these categories is something we need to focus on, or something we can add to it, and then there's something we should avoid. This month, we're talking about avoiding toxic fragrances as one of the most important things. We'll talk about that tomorrow. One of the most important toxins to get rid of, especially as it regards to the respiratory system, but in wellness in general. And then in the food category, we're talking about getting rid of partially hydrogenated vegetable oil. So every time we look at these four essentials for life, there's going to be areas that in each of these four categories that we need to avoid. Let's stop poisoning ourselves, which is the wellness strategy we'll talk more about tomorrow. Stop poisoning ourselves in the respiratory system in each of those categories. So this is how I think about this. This is to me, the most efficient way to move toward wellness, is to use powerful tools. And I think it's the biggest mistake people make in the wellness category, is to focus all of their attention on food. And what I'm going to tell you basically in the food category is, if we just stop poisoning ourselves, if we just actually stop hurting ourselves in the food category, a whole kinds of things open up in the food options, okay? And this is one of those things that people will argue with me. I used to say that that basically food is a weak medicine. Now, and I only say that in the context, if you've heard me say that before, you get all offended. What do you mean? You know, food is everything. And yeah, sure, food is everything, but compared to water and air, food is relatively weak. So here's where I'm getting at why we're starting with the respiratory system. If we can benefit, if we can improve our respiratory system, if we can improve our intake of oxygen and their exhale or getting rid of carbon dioxide, if we can improve that by 10%, 20%, and I'm not, those percentages are not ridiculous. Most of the time when someone comes in and lays on my table in the massage, for a massage or structural body work, I identify that they are using like half of their true breath support. Half of their volume is gone or missing, maybe a third for the best of people. And most people are coming in with a highly restricted respiratory system. And hopefully at the end of this month, you're going to start to know some tools and some strategies and actually take action to improve the amount of oxygen you get into your body through your respiratory system. So if we're compromised in the air category and when we're dead within minutes without it, what kind of impact is that having on our respiratory system? Which is, again, why I'm being fanatical about getting rid of those air pollution stuff, and we'll talk more about that tomorrow. And then the water, if we don't have enough, if we're not hydrated, if we don't have enough water going in, and our lungs depend, we'll talk a lot about the mucus and the lining of the lungs, and we'll get into this. But if the lining of the lungs depend on the flushing out of the surfaces with mucus, which means a lot of fluid, right? I think we swallow like a quart of mucus every day that comes out of the lungs. Not to gross you out, but that's just the reality. So if we've got all this fluid that's running through, what happens if we get dehydrated and that fluid and that mucus gets all sticky and congested and difficult to move? Well, how can we have a congested and clogged respiratory system? Of course. We've got to get enough water, which is why before we even started anything, I said you need to drink your morning water. So get your chart out. Maybe I'll make you a chart that you can check off, but it's not. Someone's going to complain and say, hey, I like it differently. Okay, fine. If you already have a chart, maybe you can post it for us. I'll make a little chart too, a little check mark. And what I like to do is just keep track. Did I do my morning water? Check. Am I doing my breathing 4 times a day? Check, 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 check. And do that for each day so I can actually keep track of it. And I say, oh, look, I've done it. And then I look at weeks that I don't do it, and we'll talk more about accountability. But basically, okay, so today, what I want you to, this is concept-wise, there's not a big action step today, but the concept here of food, water, air, and love, and understand that we're going to go through those categories for each of the body systems as we do this. So the respiratory system is the main thing. If we talk about food, again, if we get rid of partially hydrogenated vegetable oil, we'll talk more about that tomorrow or in 2 days. And then we get rid of our toxic fragrances and we drink enough water. Those are something that we're acting on in those 3 categories. Now, what about the love category? And here's where I think the real power of breathing and consciousness and all of this come in. That consciousness matters. I hope you know that. And if I wake up every day and I look at myself in the mirror and I say I'm stupid and ugly, do you think that's going to be a good day? I mean, why would I do that? But most of us have some kind of negative program running underneath and in the background, okay? And so maybe we'll talk about affirmations. But here's where, in the love category, if I am stressed, if I think about something stressed, and you can play with this for yourself and explore this and experiment with it, but identify when you're not breathing well, and it's usually when you're stressed, you're thinking about something stressful, okay? And so stress has a direct impact, the emotional state of our mind has a direct impact on our breathing. So if I'm stressed and I'm not breathing, then my whole wellness goes down. And if I'm stressed all the time, if I'm running a baseline stress that's way up here, then I'm not able to get breath on a hourly basis. So here I am all the time, constantly reducing my respiratory system. And what impact is that going to have on our health? Huge. Low oxygen is a big deal. Okay, so here's the thing about stress. We sometimes we don't know how stressed we are, and a lot of times most people, I would say, don't, because I'll talk to them and say, oh no, I'm not stressed. Oh, no, I'm not stressed. I'm not stressed. I mean, and I'm like, whoa, gosh, man, this person's running at 1,000 miles a minute, and they don't even register that they're burning the candle at both ends. They're burning up their adrenal glands. A lot of you probably want the adrenal. If you looked at our year plan, the adrenals, the endocrine system isn't until October or something like that. So I know a lot of people, oh, I want more. I want the endocrine system now. Well, let's get the foundations of wellness, and then I think you'll find by the time we get to there, your endocrine system will be much better off. But you can do a lot to help your stress level by breathing. Okay, in other words, there's that direct connection between. So next time you feel like you're not breathing, breathe. Okay, and this month we're going to talk about getting in touch with that breathing. If you don't recognize when you're not breathing, then you can't use breath to insert and interrupt a stress pattern. So in other words, what I'm saying is stress affects the breathing, but breathing can feed back and affect the stress. So it becomes one of the more powerful tools we have to connect breathing and love, those two categories, which are the most powerful categories. And that's what I attribute a big chunk of what I do on a daily basis to be well, is that right there. And that combination of breathing and love out of these four categories, the combination of breathing and love and using that with consciousness is the way that I get in tune with what my body is doing. So I'm sharing that with you. This is going to be a journey of discovery, and I hope and I encourage you to do it, because sometimes this idea of discovery, of getting in touch with my body, is not pleasant. If you're not as well as you want to be, and you know you're not, then as you start to get in touch with the body's going to start complaining. So you're going to go through some rough spots. And you have to admit that is something that you need to work on. So, okay, I've gone long enough, but food, water, air, and love are these four categories, and we're going to look at these for each of the body systems. Now, tomorrow, we're going to talk about the wellness strategy and get how to think about all that and get these things knocked out. So join me tomorrow. Happy wellness.